don't know if anyone is going to believe me, and honestly, I don't care at this point. I've tried talking to friends, even family, but they all look at me like I'm insane. Maybe I am. I don't know anymore. This has been messing with my head for weeks now, and I just need to tell someone, anyone, because keeping it inside feels like it's rotting me from the inside out. It all started about a month ago. I'm not proud of this, but I've always had a weird fascination with the darker corners of the internet. You know, the stuff you don't talk about in public. Most people hear about the dark web and think it's all drugs and hitmen, but if you dig deeper, you find some really weird shit. Like, I'm talking levels of disturbing that you can't even imagine unless you've been there. I wasn't looking for anything specific that night, just browsing out of boredom. It was late, around 2 or 3 a.m., and I had that restless feeling you get when you've already watched everything on Netflix and social media is dead. I'd been bouncing between random forums and chat rooms when I stumbled across a link buried deep in a thread. No context, just a short message saying, "Live stream, real horror, must see." Now, I've seen my share of weird videos and live streams before, but something about this one felt different. The link was sketchy as hell, but that's what you expect on the dark web. Without thinking too much about it, I clicked. It took me to a black screen with a simple video player embedded in the middle. No chat, no likes or views, just a blinking red light in the corner showing that it was live. I remember leaning in closer, my screen casting this pale glow on my face in the pitch-black room. At first, nothing was happening. Just a static shot of what looked like a dimly lit basement. I almost closed out, thinking it was a waste of time. But something about the room looked familiar. I mean, it wasn't like I'd ever seen it before, but it had this weird, nagging familiarity that kept me watching. I couldn't quite place it, but I couldn't look away. Minutes passed and still nothing happened. I started thinking it was just some prank or maybe the stream was broken. But then I noticed something, a small movement in the corner. It was subtle at first, like a shadow shifting, and my stomach instantly dropped. I'm not easily freaked out, but there was something off about the way it moved, like it was too smooth, too calculated. And then, without warning, the camera angle shifted slightly, like someone was adjusting it from behind the screen. My heart started racing because that's when I realized there was someone in the basement. I could barely make out a figure, huddled in the shadows, just outside the light of the camera. At this point, I was glued to my chair, my eyes locked on the screen, trying to figure out what the hell was going on. The figure stepped into the light slowly, like they were being careful not to make too much noise. They were wearing some kind of dark hoodie, and the hood was pulled up so I couldn't see their face. But what I could see was their hands. They were covered in blood. I should have closed the browser right then and there. I should have shut my laptop and walked away, but I didn't. I just sat there, paralyzed, as the figure started pacing back and forth in the small space, muttering to themselves in a low voice. I couldn't make out what they were saying, but the tone was enough to send chills down my spine. I remember thinking, what the hell am I watching? Is this some kind of performance art? A prank? But it didn't feel like that. This felt real, too real. The camera angle shifted again, and that's when I realized where I had seen the basement before. It was my basement. I live in this old house, nothing special, but the basement's got this weird layout with exposed pipes and cement floors. I hadn't been down there in months. No reason to. It's damp and creepy as hell. But the more I stared at the screen, the more I recognized the small details. The rusted old toolbox in the corner, the pile of old newspapers I'd never bothered to clean up. It was my basement on the live stream. My heart was pounding so hard, I thought I was going to pass out. I jumped up from my chair, knocking it over in the process, and ran to the basement door. I remember standing there, hand hovering over the doorknob, just shaking. I didn't want to open it, but at the same time I had to. I had to know if someone was really down there. When I finally worked up the nerve, I yanked the door open and flicked on the light. The stairs creaked as I took one step down, then another, but everything was quiet. Too quiet. I kept glancing back up at the screen to make sure the stream was still live. It was. The figure was still there, pacing, muttering, bleeding all over the damn place. I reached the bottom of the stairs, and that's when I noticed something. The camera. It was sitting on a tripod, perfectly positioned to capture the whole room. But there was no one there. The figure I had seen on the screen was nowhere to be found. At this point, I'm freaking out. My mind is racing, trying to make sense of what the hell is going on. I scanned the room again, and that's when I saw it. A door. A door that shouldn't have been there. I've lived in this house for years. I know every inch of it, and I'm telling you, there was never a door in my basement before. But now, there it was. This old, wooden thing, covered in scratches, like something had been trying to claw its way out. I swear, I could hear something behind it. Breathing. Heavy, labored breathing. And then, without thinking, I reached for the handle. The second my fingers touched the cold metal, I heard a voice behind me. A low, guttural whisper that chilled me to my core. It wasn't clear at first, just a jumble of sounds, like someone trying to talk through a mouthful of gravel. But then, slowly, it started to make sense. It said my name. At that point, I don't know what came over me, but I bolted up the stairs, slammed the door shut, and locked it behind me. I didn't care about the live stream anymore. I didn't care about the door or whatever was behind it. All I cared about was getting the hell out of that basement, but when I turned to run back to my computer, I froze. The screen was showing the live feed again, but this time there was someone new in the frame. Someone standing right in front of the camera, staring directly at me. It was me. I don't know how or why, but there I was on the screen, just standing there, watching myself. And the figure behind the camera, the one with the bloody hands, it was right behind me. I'm done for now. I need to take a break. There's more to tell, but I can't do it right now. I'll update soon. If I make it through the night. I don't know how I made it through that night. I sat in my room, lights on, every door locked, heart pounding in my chest like it was about to explode. I kept telling myself it was all a glitch or some messed up prank, anything to make it make sense. But deep down, I knew there was no logical explanation. You don't just accidentally stumble upon a live stream from your own basement, and you sure as hell don't see yourself on screen when you're sitting in front of the computer. After I posted the first part of this, I tried to calm down. I needed sleep, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw that image again. Me, standing there in my basement, with that figure right behind me. It felt like they were in the room with me, just waiting for me to close my eyes so they could, I don't know, do whatever the hell they were going to do. I didn't sleep, not even for a minute. The next morning, things didn't feel any better. I could hear the faint creaking of the house settling, the way old houses do, but every little noise made me jump. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, like really, really wrong. You know when you get that sense that you're being watched? That was my entire morning. I couldn't even take a shower because I was convinced someone was watching me from the hallway. It felt like eyes were on me the entire time. I avoided my basement. Obviously, I wasn't about to go down there again, not after what happened, but I couldn't shake the curiosity. I kept thinking, what if it was all just a trick? What if I imagined it? But then I'd remember the camera, the door, and that voice. The one that whispered my name. That was real. I wasn't imagining it. Later that day, I tried doing normal stuff, watching TV, playing video games, whatever, to distract myself. But I couldn't focus. I kept checking my phone, half expecting to see some update or alert from the dark web stream, but there was nothing. Everything was silent. It wasn't until around 10 p.m. that things started getting weird again. I was sitting on the couch, phone in hand, when I got a notification. It was from the browser I used to access the dark web. A message. Now, I know better than to open random messages, especially from that part of the internet. It's usually spam, scams, or worse. But my curiosity got the better of me. I clicked on it. It was a link. Just a single plain link with no explanation. The URL was garbled nonsense, like someone had smashed their keyboard, but something about it made my skin crawl. I don't know why I clicked it. It's like my brain wasn't fully in control anymore. My hand just moved, like I had to see what was on the other side. The link took me back to the same livestream page, the same black screen, the same blinking red light. Only this time, the stream was already playing. And what I saw made my blood run cold. It was my living room, the exact room I was sitting in, right at that moment. The angle was perfect, showing the entire space from a corner I couldn't even see. It was live. There was no delay, no lag. I was watching myself sitting on the couch, staring at my phone in real time. I jumped up, scanning the room for a camera, but I couldn't see anything. There was no camera, no sign of anyone being there, but I knew someone was watching me. They had to be. I stared at the screen, hoping it would glitch out or cut off, but it didn't. It just kept streaming. I watched as I stood there, looking around the room, panic written all over my face. And then the angle shifted. It was so subtle, like whoever was behind the camera was moving it ever so slightly. But that wasn't the worst part. No, the worst part was the movement behind me. At first, it was just a shadow, a small flicker of darkness in the far corner of the room. My heart skipped a beat as I whipped around, expecting to see someone or something standing there, but the corner was empty, nothing but the usual clutter. I turned back to the stream, and that's when I saw it. The shadow wasn't in the corner anymore. It was closer, right behind me. It was a figure, but it wasn't like the one from the basement. This one was darker, its shape all wrong. Its limbs were too long and its head was tilted at this unnatural angle, like it didn't belong to a human body. It didn't move like a person either. It jerked forward, stopping just behind me, its head level with mine like it was breathing down my neck. I could see it on the screen, but when I turned around there was nothing there. Nothing but the cold, suffocating feeling of something watching me. I ran. I bolted upstairs, locking myself in my room, but I couldn't escape that feeling. I pulled my laptop out, logged into the stream again, and there it was. The camera had followed me upstairs. It was showing my bedroom now from some angle I couldn't figure out. I checked the entire room, closets, under the bed, behind the curtains, but I couldn't find anything. No camera, no sign of how they were doing this. The figure wasn't on the screen anymore, but that didn't make me feel any better. It felt like it was hiding, just out of view, waiting for the right moment. I tried calling the cops. I mean, what else was I supposed to do? I told them someone was watching me, streaming my every move. They told me to calm down, said they'd send someone over, but I knew they weren't going to help. They didn't understand what was happening. Hell, I didn't even understand it myself. That's when the knocking started. At first, it was soft, almost like someone was tapping on the walls. I thought it was just the house settling again, but then it got louder, more insistent. It wasn't coming from outside, though. It was coming from the inside of the walls. I backed up against the far corner of the room, heart racing, trying to make sense of it. And then I heard it, the whisper, the same voice from the basement, the same gravelly tone. But this time, it wasn't saying my name. It was laughing. I need to stop for now. I can't keep going tonight. I thought things were bad before, but now I don't know how much longer I can take this. There's more. So much more. I just need to gather myself before I tell the rest. If anyone has any idea what's happening or how to stop it, I'm begging you, let me know. Because I don't think I'm alone in this house anymore. I didn't sleep. Again. How could I? I kept hearing those whispers, like they were crawling through the walls, sneaking into my head. Every creak, every thud in the house felt like it was alive, like it was breathing down my neck. And I couldn't shake that laugh. It echoed in my mind, over and over, like some sick reminder that whatever this thing was, it was toying with me. I stayed locked in my room all night, my back pressed against the door like it was the only thing keeping me safe. I kept checking the live stream on my laptop, but the feed had gone dark after the knocking. No signal, no creepy figure lurking behind me, just black. But that almost made it worse. I knew it wasn't over. It was just waiting. Around 5 a.m. the cops finally showed up. I must have called them 5 times, freaking out, begging them to come quicker. When they got here, I was a mess, sweaty, shaky, barely able to string a sentence together. I tried explaining everything, the stream, the camera, the figure in my basement. I told them about the door that wasn't supposed to be there, the weird whispers, and how someone was watching me. The 2 officers just exchanged glances, the kind of look that says, "Great, we've got another nutcase on our hands." But I didn't care how crazy I sounded. I just wanted them to do something. So I practically dragged them down to the basement, showing them where I'd seen the camera, the door, everything. But the second we got down there, I knew something was wrong. The camera was gone. No tripod, no camera, nothing. Just an empty room with the same old rusty tools and piles of junk. The door, the one with the scratches, the one that hadn't been there before, was gone too, like it had never existed. The officers poked around for a few minutes, asking me questions I couldn't answer, like, "Have you been drinking?" Or, "Have you had any mental health issues recently?" I was losing my mind trying to explain it to them, but they just kept giving me that same look. I felt like I was losing control of reality. When they couldn't find anything in the basement, they took a quick look around the rest of the house. They didn't even try to hide how annoyed they were by the whole thing. After about 20 minutes, one of the officers finally turned to me and said, "Look, man, there's no sign of anyone breaking in, no hidden cameras. Maybe you should get some rest. Stress can do weird things to your mind." And just like that, they left. I was alone again. I tried convincing myself that maybe they were right. Maybe I'd lost it. Maybe all the stress and lack of sleep had screwed with my head so badly that I was seeing things that weren't there. But then I remembered the stream. I remembered seeing myself on that screen, the figure behind me, the blood on its hands. That wasn't in my head. That was real. I didn't know what to do, but I knew I couldn't stay in the house, not after everything that had happened. I packed a bag, grabbed my car keys, and decided to crash at my buddy Jason's place. Jason and I had been tight since high school, and I knew he'd let me stay for a while without asking too many questions. I just needed to get out of there, even if it was only for a night. I barely made it out of the driveway before I got another notification on my phone. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. It was another message, another link. My stomach flipped as I clicked on it, dreading what I might see. It took me back to the live stream. The screen was black at first, but then the feed flickered to life, showing the inside of my car. My hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white, as I stared at the screen, completely frozen. The camera was inside my car, filming me. It was live. I slammed on the brakes, heart racing, and looked around. There was no camera, nothing that I could see, but the feed was showing me, right there, in real time. I checked the rearview mirror, half expecting to see that shadowy figure from before sitting in the back seat, but there was nothing. Just me, alone in the car, panicking like a lunatic. I threw my phone onto the passenger seat and sped off, trying to put as much distance between me and that damn house as possible. I didn't care where I ended up. I just needed to be anywhere but there. When I got to Jason's place, I must have looked like a complete wreck. I barely said 2 words to him before collapsing onto his couch. I didn't tell him everything, not yet. I didn't want to freak him out, and honestly, I was still trying to make sense of it myself. I just told him I needed a place to crash for a bit, and he didn't ask any questions. But that night, things got worse. I was lying on the couch, scrolling through my phone, trying to distract myself with anything that wasn't a live stream. I don't know why, but I felt the urge to check my basement camera feed again. I had installed security cameras all over my house a few years ago after a break-in scare, including one in the basement. I opened the app and clicked on the basement feed, half expecting to see nothing, but what I saw nearly made me drop my phone. The door was back. That same old wooden door, covered in scratches, standing exactly where it had been before. Only now, it was open. Just a crack, but enough for me to see the darkness behind it. And there was something in the darkness, something moving. It was slow, almost like it was crawling out of the door. I couldn't see it clearly, just a long, twisted shadow, but I knew it wasn't human. Its limbs were too long, its body contorted in ways that shouldn't have been possible. And then it stopped, right in front of the camera, like it was staring directly at me through the screen. And then it spoke. It wasn't a whisper this time. It was louder, clearer, like it was right there in the room with me. "I'm coming for you." I dropped my phone and backed away, heart pounding in my chest, but the voice didn't stop. It echoed in my head, growing louder, more insistent. "I'm coming for you." Over and over, like some twisted chant. I tried to tell myself it wasn't real. It couldn't be real. But deep down, I knew it was. I knew whatever was in that basement, whatever had been watching me, it wasn't done with me yet. I turned off my phone, but it didn't stop the voice. I could still hear it, faint but persistent, echoing in my mind. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that door. I saw the thing crawling out of it. And I heard its voice, calling my name, promising that it was coming. I don't know what to do anymore. I'm scared to go back to my house, but I can't stay here forever. Whatever it is, it's not just in my basement. It's following me, haunting me. I don't know how to stop it. I didn't go back to my house the next day. I couldn't. I just couldn't. Something about that voice, the way it echoed in my head, the way it felt like it was crawling through my skin, kept me glued to Jason's couch. I didn't tell him much about what was going on, but I'm pretty sure he could tell I wasn't myself. He kept asking if I was okay, and I just kept lying through my teeth, telling him it was no big deal, that I just needed some space from my place for a while. But the truth was, I was terrified. I couldn't get that basement door out of my head, the way it had just appeared, the scratches, the darkness behind it, and that thing crawling out. I knew something was coming for me. I could feel it in my bones. For a couple of days, I thought maybe I could just ignore it. I stayed at Jason's, tried to pretend that everything was fine, that I wasn't still hearing those whispers in my head every night when the house got quiet. But no matter what I did, it didn't go away. I didn't check the live stream. I couldn't bring myself to. The thought of seeing myself, or worse, seeing that thing again, it made my stomach turn. So I stayed away. But it didn't matter. That dark web stream, the one I thought I could just ignore, had a way of finding me, even when I wasn't looking. It was around 3 a.m. when it happened again. I was sitting on the couch, scrolling mindlessly through my phone, trying to stay awake because every time I closed my eyes, I could feel that thing getting closer. Jason had crashed hours ago, and the house was dead quiet, except for the occasional creak of the floorboards, which by this point was enough to make my heart race. My phone buzzed. I should have known better. I should have just turned the damn thing off, but of course I didn't. It was another notification, another message. This time, the text wasn't just a link. There were 3 words that sent my heart plummeting into my stomach. "Turn around, now." I froze. My hand gripped the phone so hard, my knuckles turned white. I could feel the blood drain from my face. My mind was racing. What the hell do I do? Do I look? Do I run? Is this real? It felt like every inch of my body was screaming not to turn around. I could feel something behind me, that thick, suffocating presence, the same one I felt in my house. I couldn't see it, but I could feel it, something standing just inches away, watching me. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. I stared at my phone, trying to think of a plan, any plan, but nothing was coming. It felt like my brain had short-circuited, like all logic had left the room, and I was stuck in this horrible, frozen moment. But then, I heard it. That same voice, that low, gravelly whisper that I knew all too well. Only this time, it wasn't in my head. It was coming from right behind me. Turn. Around. The voice was so close I could almost feel its breath on my neck. I couldn't take it anymore. I shot up off the couch, spinning around so fast I nearly tripped over the coffee table. But when I turned, there was nothing there. Just the empty living room, dimly lit by the streetlight outside. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding, but it didn't calm me down.
If anything, it made me more paranoid. I started pacing the room, checking the windows, the doors, anything that could give me some kind of clue as to what the hell was happening. That's when my phone buzzed again. Another message. I didn't want to look. I really didn't want to look, but I couldn't help it. I was already in too deep. I opened the message, and this time there was a video attached. No link, just a video. I stared at it for a long time, my thumb hovering over the play button, debating whether I even wanted to know what was on it. But curiosity got the better of me. Of course it did. I pressed play. The screen flickered, and at first it was just static. But then the image cleared up, and I immediately regretted hitting that button.
It was Jason's living room, the room I was standing in. The camera angle was the same one from the basement, set up in a corner I couldn't see, perfectly capturing the entire space. And there I was, pacing back and forth like a paranoid wreck, checking the windows, the doors, completely unaware that I was being watched. But then I saw something else. It wasn't just me on the screen. There was someone else, something else, in the room with me. A shadow, tall and thin, lurking just behind me in the far corner. It didn't move at first. It just stood there, watching, waiting. But the longer I watched, the closer it got. In the video, I kept pacing, completely oblivious, as this thing crept up behind me, inch by inch, until it was standing directly over my shoulder. I could see it on the screen, its long, bony fingers reaching out toward me. But when I looked around the room in real life, there was nothing there. Then the camera angle shifted again. It zoomed in on my face, right there in the room, sweat dripping down my forehead, eyes wide with terror. And that's when I saw it. In the video, my face started to change. It wasn't a normal glitch or distortion. It was like my features were melting, warping into something twisted, unnatural. My eyes went black, my mouth stretched into this grotesque too-wide grin. It didn't even look human anymore. It looked like some kind of monster wearing my skin. I threw my phone across the room, the screen shattering against the wall. I didn't care. I couldn't stand to look at it anymore. I ran upstairs to Jason's room and shook him awake, probably more violently than I should have. "Dude, what the hell?" he shouted, groggy and annoyed. I need help, man. Something's wrong. Something's really wrong." He sat up, rubbing his eyes, still half asleep. "What are you talking about?" "I don't know. I don't know how to explain it, but I think something's here, something's following me." Jason looked at me like I had lost my damn mind, which, to be fair, was probably exactly how I looked. But I was desperate. "I just need you to come downstairs with me, please. Just for a minute." He sighed, muttering something about me being crazy. But eventually, he got out of bed and followed me down the stairs. I felt a little more at ease having someone else there with me, but that didn't last long. The second we stepped into the living room, Jason stopped dead in his tracks. "Dude, what the hell is that?" I followed his gaze and my heart dropped. There, in the corner of the room, right where the shadow had been in the video, was a door. The same door from my basement. It shouldn't have been there. There was no reason for it to be there. Jason's house didn't even have a basement. But there it was, standing ominously in the middle of the room, covered in deep, jagged scratches. And the door was open. Not much, just a crack. But enough for me to see the darkness beyond. Enough to hear the faint, raspy breathing that I had come to dread. I turned to Jason, but his face had gone pale. He was backing away, his hands up like he wanted no part of whatever was happening. "Man, I don't know what's going on, but you need to get out of here. You need to leave right now." I didn't argue. I didn't have time to. The door creaked open a little more, and I knew. If I didn't get out of there, whatever was behind that door was going to take me. I ran. I didn't even grab my stuff. I just bolted out of the house and into the street, not stopping until I was halfway down the block. When I finally looked back, Jason's house was quiet. No sign of the door, no sign of anything. But I knew it was still there. It wasn't going to stop. I haven't been back to Jason's since that night. I don't think I ever will. But the thing is, it doesn't matter. No matter where I go, no matter how far I run, I can still hear that voice. It's still coming. It's been a week since I left Jason's place, and I still haven't gone home. I don't even know where I am right now. Just driving aimlessly from one cheap motel to another, trying to stay ahead of whatever the hell is after me. But it doesn't matter how far I go. It's with me. I can feel it. Everywhere I turn, every dark corner, every shadow in the rearview mirror, I know it's there, waiting. I've tried to stay off the internet. I ditched my phone. I smashed it to pieces and tossed it in a dumpster a couple of days ago, but that hasn't stopped the messages. They keep finding me. I don't know how, but every time I turn on a TV or walk past a computer, something's there. It started small, like glitches. A TV in a diner I stopped at flickering between channels on its own, only to settle on a blank screen with that familiar red blinking light in the corner. Live. I don't even know how the dark web is finding me now. I'm not logged into anything. I've thrown away every device I had, but it keeps coming back no matter where I go. 2 nights ago, I was in this rundown motel just outside of town, lying on the bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to convince myself that I could maybe outrun it, that it was just some messed up prank gone wrong, and then I heard it. The knocking. Soft at first, like someone tapping their fingers on the wall, but it got louder, more insistent. I thought I was imagining it. I hoped I was imagining it. But when I sat up, I saw it. The door.
That same door, the one from my basement, the one from Jason's living room. It was right there in the middle of the motel room, standing upright against the far wall, where there hadn't been anything before. And this time, it wasn't just scratched up. The wood was splintered, broken in places, like something had been trying to bash its way through. The door wasn't open yet, but I could hear the breathing again. That heavy, laboured breathing, the same one from the basement, the same one from the live stream. And then, slowly, the handle began to turn. I froze. Every part of me screamed to run, to get the hell out of that room, but I couldn't move. I just stood there, watching the door as it creaked open, inch by inch. I don't know why I stayed. Maybe I thought it was finally going to end. Maybe I thought it was better to face whatever this thing was head on than keep running. But when the door finally opened all the way, I realized I was dead wrong. There was no basement behind the door this time. No familiar shadows or piles of junk. Just a hallway. A long, narrow hallway with flickering lights, stretching into darkness. And standing at the far end of that hallway was it. I don't know what to call it. It looked human, but not. Its limbs were too long, too thin, and its skin was this sickly grey, pulled tight over bones that looked like they could snap any second. Its face was the worst part. Blank. No eyes, no nose, just a gaping mouth, stretched into this wide, twisted grin that looked more like a wound than a smile. I stared at it, and it stared back at me, even though it didn't have any eyes. I could feel it watching me, sizing me up, like it was deciding whether I was worth the chase. And then it took a step forward.
Its movements were slow at first, jerky, like its limbs were too heavy to carry, but it was moving faster with every step, closing the distance between us. I backed up, my legs finally deciding to work, but I didn't make it far. I was pinned against the motel door, trying to fumble with the lock, my hands shaking so bad I could barely grip the handle. And then, as if it could sense my fear, the thing laughed. That same horrible laugh I'd been hearing for days. Only this time, it wasn't just in my head. It was right there, in the room with me, filling the space with this low, guttural sound that sent chills down my spine. I finally got the door open and bolted out into the parking lot, not bothering to grab any of my stuff. I didn't care. I just needed to get away. I ran to my car, but when I got in, I made the mistake of looking back at the motel. The door was still open. The hallway was still there. And so was it. Standing at the edge of the hallway, just outside the door, its head tilted at that unnatural angle, like it was watching me, like it was waiting. I didn't stick around to see what would happen next. I floored it out of there, driving for hours until the sun started to rise. But even then, I knew it wasn't over. It's never over. It's always there, lurking just out of sight. The worst part is, I'm not even safe when I'm awake anymore. Last night, after I checked into another motel, I started hearing the voice again. Not the whispers this time, not the laughing, just breathing. Soft, heavy breathing, coming from right behind me, just like before. I turned around, but no one was there. I checked the bathroom, the closet, under the bed, nothing. But the breathing didn't stop. It was like the walls themselves were breathing, this slow, rhythmic in and out that matched my own breaths, almost like it was mocking me. I tried to leave, but when I opened the door, I froze. There, in the parking lot, was another door. Standing upright in the middle of the pavement, just waiting for me, the same one, the one with the scratches, the one that shouldn't exist. And the thing is, it wasn't alone this time. There were others. At least 3 or 4 more doors, scattered around the lot, all of them standing wide open. And I could feel them, the things inside, watching me from the darkness, waiting. I ran back into the room, locked the door, and haven't left since. But I know I can't stay here. The doors will keep following me. No matter where I go, they'll be there. I haven't checked the live stream again. I can't. I don't need to. I know what I'll see. I'll see myself. I'll see it. And I'll see those doors. I don't know how much longer I can run. I don't even know if there's a way to stop it. But if you're reading this, take my advice. Stay away from the dark web. Stay away from any live streams that seem off. And if you ever see a door where there shouldn't be one, run. Because once it finds you, once it opens that door, it's too late. And no matter how far you go, no matter how many doors you close behind you, it'll always be one step ahead. I can hear it now, scratching at the walls, at the door. It's here. It's always been here. And now, it's coming through.